I was fearing for my life, and at this point I was genuinely scared that I was going to die. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is a story time, and a very shocking story time at that.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah.
This is probably going to be in two parts because it is very complex, and the detail within this story, there is a lot to it. So I don't want to miss any details out by having to think that I have to make it into a one-part video. So I will either be doing one or two parts. I would assume it's most likely going to be two, and I'm going to try not to make it three, but you guys seem to love my story times. The story time about my sexual abuse, that went semi-viral for my channel. So I'm going to go ahead and tell this story and hope that you love this story as much as you were interested in my sexual abuse. So before I start this video, I just wanted to put out a disclaimer there. In this video there is mentions of topics of bullying, there is also mentions of attempted murder, and there is also mentions of drowning. So if you're triggered by any of those topics, then please consider not watching this video today, and please consider looking after yourself first and either watching another one of my videos or coming back to this video when you feel that you are in the right headspace to watch it. So for the purpose of this story, there is two other people involved. I will be changing their names to protect their identity. The first person I'll be introducing to you is Beth. She was the bully in this story, and she is the main person why this story even exists. And the second person I'm going to be calling Lily. Lily was friends with me and Beth, and basically she was almost stuck in the middle. And as I've grown older, I've really appreciated Lily, and I've really appreciated what she did for me in that moment, because I really understand now as an adult human being that, I don't know, like just having, you know, being in between two different people must have been so difficult. And I really just want to say that I appreciate her. So at the start of the school year, I had recently just joined this school, and I had fairly quickly, attached myself to this group of friends. So me, Beth and Lily. We were a dysfunctional group, but it all just seemed to work, and it all just seemed to kind of function the way it did. There was me, who lacked in social skills and was quite shy at times. And there was Beth, who was quite, how would you put it, like quite assertive in her nature, and she knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew what she wanted when she wanted it, and she was quite bossy, to be honest. And then there was Lily, who was in the middle, and she was fairly shy at sometimes, but also knew how to stand up for herself. So there was almost like the different scales of people in this particular story. So as I said, we were all friends at the start, and we all just got on, and we all, like, there was no issues until one weekend when Beth had a birthday party. And this was towards the beginning of the school year, so we hadn't really, like, you know, known each other that much. I think her birthday was either November or December, and so you got to imagine, if we start school in September, we've only known each other for a few months. But I went to this birthday party. It was me, Lily and Beth, and we all kind of had a good time. We went to the cinema, we came back to hers, and we ate lots and lots of sweets and chocolate and just sugar in general. And we were all hyper, and we were all running around, and it was all such a really, really good time. And then at one point, Beth gets the news that her grandmother had passed away, and I didn't know how to respond to that. Being an 11-year-old kid, I'd never lost anyone in my life. You know, I'd never experienced grief. So because I'd never experienced grief, it was really hard to be able to be there for somebody who was also experiencing it, and try and say the right things, because I just didn't know what to say and how to say it and how to make her feel better, because there was no way of consoling her, but there was also no way of showing my support. And because I'm, as I said, one of these people who doesn't really have great social functioning, I didn't really know what to say, and I didn't really know how to word it properly to be able to get it across and for it to be okay, if that makes sense. So whatever I said ticked her off the wrong way, and she had this grudge against me, and I didn't realise she had this grudge until Monday morning when I came into school, and she had decided that she had this grudge against me, and she started calling me names. Now, this was probably the shortest, the most brief period in this bullying episode, but she would call me names like fat, ugly, stupid, retard. She'd call me all these different names that were becoming my normal, and it shouldn't become normal. Bullying is not normal. Bullying is rubbish. Bullying should not occur. but it became my normal, and I just kind of learnt to deal with it, mainly because my teachers were saying, well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that was the mentality at that school, which should not be the mentality, by the way. If you're a teacher watching this and a child comes to you and says that they are having people saying and calling them horrible names, then you need to try and sort it, because sticks and stones may break your bones, yes, but words also do hurt, and I want to try and bring that message and show it that words can hurt as well. So the second phase, I'm going to call it the second phase, but the second phase of this bullying was that Beth decided she was going to start tapping me across the shoulder and calling me these names. So she would come up to me and she would initially playfully hit me. Well, that's what I thought it was anyway. And she'd hit me on this region of my arm. So she would kind of slap me across my arm like this, and then she would call me one of the names that she was always calling me from the words at the start, sort of thing. And this kind of started off quite light tapping across the shoulder, but then got harder and harder. And as it's progressed, I started to make a bit more of what was called a fuss at the school. And I kept saying to like the teachers, can you please deal with this? Can you please sort this out? Can you please do something about this? Because it's horrible. Like, I shouldn't come into school to be bullied. And they were trying their best, kind of, I suppose. They kind of tried to talk to Beth, and because Beth was so abrupt and she was so set in her ways, there was only so much the teachers could do. And at the time, and even now, there probably was more they could do, but at the time I had to settle for the fact that that was it. They couldn't do anything else. There was nothing else that they could do apart from tell her to stop. And you give her detentions and, like, you know, and give her isolations and things like that, but there's not really much else. Well, this is what I was told that the school could do. So phase 3 of this story was Lily had invited me, and this is Lily, the girl who's in the middle. She had invited me to a circus event that was happening on the Friday evening, and then from that Friday evening we would then do a sleepover and then get picked up in the morning. And that was the premise of this. And this is when the bullying really, really escalated. So I checked with Lily. I said, is Beth going to be there? And Lily said, no, Beth is not going to be there. I spent last weekend with Beth, so I'm going to spend this weekend with you. And we did something really nice, went out to the cinema and things like that, and she told me briefly what she'd done with Beth. So that put my mind at ease to know that Beth had some quality time with Lily without me, and for me then to be able to say yes to this circus thing, because I wanted to go and I was invited to go out with a friend, so I wanted to go. But I didn't want Beth to be there, and I didn't want to be tormented by her. So I checked that she wasn't going to be there, and you know, and Lily made me feel that it was okay. So the afternoon after school, when we decided we were gonna walk home back to her house together, back to Lily's house, and we were going to then go from her house to the circus and then have the sleepover, and it was all planned out. It was all set in stone. My parents obviously weren't picking me up from school that afternoon, and they were going to pick me up from Lily's house at, I think it was like midday or something the next day. So it was going to be a really nice sort of 24 hours together. It was going to be really just like a nice bonding time. But before we left school, Beth was hanging around, and I was hanging around because I had to speak to some teachers. I had to sort a few things out, like with some homework, with some deadlines. And I was speaking to other teachers, and Beth was hanging around. She was loitering. She was just almost like, I could tell partly that what she was doing was like almost faking the fact that she had to be there and stay there. She was kind of packing her bag up, and then she was unpacking her bag, and then she was going to her locker, and then she was going back to the cloakroom, and then she was going back to her locker, and then back to the cloakroom, and she was unpacking her bag and repacking her bag, and you get the picture. She was just kind of just, as I said, loitering. Loitering was the best word for it. She was just dawdling and basically waiting for us. But in the front of my mind, I was always a child who would give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I was not somebody who would, you know, see the bad in people. And I think that was one of my downfalls, mainly because, you know, some people are just inherently bad, and I would always see the good in that person, even if they were really bad. And I'm still like that to a certain point today, but I still do see the bad in people now. I still am able to decipher a bit about the good and bad in people. So when I finished with the teacher, Beth decided that, you know, she was going to leave at the exact same time that me and Lily were leaving, and she heard us sort of finishing up and leaving, because I was like, oh, thank you, Miss Smith, or whatever the teacher was. And I was like, thank you, Miss Smith, like, you know, thank you for talking to me, sort of thing. And then me and Lily started to grab our bags and to get our coats on and walk. And Beth then decided that as soon as we were getting ready to go, she was going to leave. So at this point, Beth had left and she walks the same direction home as Lily, but only half the way. We get to this point in the direction where there's a park, and at this park, Lily goes down through the park and Beth just carries straight on. So usually, I believe they would walk home together, and then at this point, they would then go their separate ways. So it was at this one park, and I started walking home with Lily, walking back to Lily's house, and Beth was in front of us, and we started approaching this park. And to me, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we're going to lose Beth now. Beth is, you know, keeping a nice distance between us. There was probably about 2 or 3 meters in between Beth and then Lily and I. And this distance was kept quite, you know, the same the whole way down the journey. And then when we got to near this park, the distance just started getting smaller and smaller. And that's because me and Lily were walking at the same pace, but Beth was slowing down. And being that person that always sees the good in people, I thought to myself, oh, maybe she's on her phone. Maybe Beth is on her phone and she is texting and she's getting distracted, therefore her walking has slowed down and she hasn't realised, and blah blah blah. This is me kind of just making excuses and seeing the best in people. And so we get up to where Beth is, and I'm on the right hand side and Lily's on the left hand side, so we go out to the right, and so therefore I'm next to Beth, but we're going around Beth because we want to overtake her. We don't need to be, you know, behind her if she's not walking quick enough. So we start to go around her. And at this point, Beth turns around and she gets her fist and she goes, and she smacks me in the stomach. Now, she has smacked me before. She's hit me across the top of the shoulders. She's done all these bits and pieces, but this was another level. This was to the point where I just did not know what was happening anymore. I was winded. I was clutching my stomach. I was in so much pain that she had just whacked me in the stomach, and I just did not know what was going on. I did not know why, and I didn't expect it.